Coming up on Meet the Leaders, the longest-serving supervisor in New York should have gone through a special election due to a clerical technicality? Well, Meet the Leaders starts right now. Hi, I'm Pat Halpin. Welcome to Meet the Leaders, the show getting you to the heart of local government right here and right now from the town of Smithtown. Supervisor Patrick Vecchio. Supervisor Vecchio, it's great to have you here on Meet the Leaders. Congratulations on being reelected to your, which term is this?
13th.
13th term. So how many years have you served as supervisor of the town
I'm in
of
my
Smithtown?
37th year.
37th year. You know, I was looking at you just a moment ago as I was waiting for the show to open. I said, you look pretty darn good. Obviously, this job agrees with you.
Oh, I think so. I like it.
And you're still enjoying every minute of it?
I do. I really do.
I mean, in all seriousness, at some point, people must ask you, why do you keep doing it? And what do you tell them?
Well, and it sounds like it's a pat answer, but I do think public service is noble. I do think public service is rewarding to you and maybe to your constituency. And that's why I like doing it. During the course of a day, you touch a lot of people, and that's important to me. And most of them go away very happy.
Did you ever think that when you first got elected, and you were kind of an upset victor
Yes.
back
78.
in 1978, you were running as a Democrat in a
Right.
town that, in my opinion, was and still is the most Republican town on Long Island,
Right.
and you won.
Yes.
Did you ever think that you'd still be here? Here it is, the year 2014.
Well, one, I never thought I'd win.
Right.
Number two, I didn't know what I was running for. Honestly, I didn't. And number three, it just was every 2 years you just ran. And thankfully, people voted for me. It was never in my mind to do this. Frankly, I didn't know what I would do after it. But
Right,
worked out well.
But at some point, I'm sure you had a primary this year.
Yeah.
Which was a hard-fought primary.
Yeah.
In years past, you've had very, very competitive elections. They say elections, Bill Clinton once said, the elections are always about the future. They're not about the past. So how do you keep getting elected year after year after year? What's the secret?
Well, I really don't know what the secret is. I think people recognize if someone is committed to working on their behalf, if someone is not doing it for grandiosity or special praise, I think people recognize that somebody's there working on their behalf.
And they also think that Smithtown's a very well-run town.
I agree with that, yes.
And that notwithstanding bumps in the road from time to time, that it's a well-run town focused on the needs of the people of Smithtown.
Yes.
Okay, so let's talk about this controversy. Every time you get elected to an office or appointed to an office, you have to sign an oath of office.
After being sworn in.
After being sworn in. I guess it's like a marriage certificate. You're not married until you get the certificate, even though you might have been married, by a minister. You still have to have the certificate from the clerk. Your town clerk didn't come to you with that certificate and say, sign the book. And I know there's a big book, as there is in every town in
Yes.
the county, of all the people who've held that office have signed since they've had that book. He never came to you and sent you a letter that said, oh, by the way, you passed the deadline. You can no longer serve as supervisor.
Yeah.
What the heck happened? What was this all about?
Well, in medieval England, there were people called highwaymen, and those were the people who laid in the gullies and behind trees and waited for the coaches to come by, and then they'd leap out and steal from the people on the coach. I think he acted as a highwayman. He waited and watched until Councilwoman Noack and I had not signed the book, and then he pounced like the highwayman. And forever into the future, he'll be known as the highwayman.
As the highwayman, as far as you're concerned. But there must have been something more nefarious behind this.
I think so.
Because look, I've been elected, I've been appointed. We've had Republican clerks, Democrat clerks. Clerks typically take their job very seriously.
Yes.
And part of their job, and I've gotten the call, you've got to come by and sign this
Exactly.
book, or they'll be at the swearing-in ceremony, or they'll be there the first business day to have you sign the book. And they'll walk into your office and do that. Why didn't this clerk do his job?
Well, as I said, it's a conspiracy. One has to ask who was part of it. In my mind, I think I know who was.
Okay, so let me ask the question.
Yes.
Who was behind this?
I think a couple of dissatisfied people who didn't like the results of an election.
But wait a second. This isn't a third world country. This is America, where elections have consequences.
Yeah.
And we don't overthrow elections, the results of elections, if we don't like them.
Yeah.
But they tried to do that in Smith.
Yes. The irony is...
it's outrageous, actually.
Sure, and most people don't understand it. I was sworn in before 150 people, sworn in by a judge of the county court. What more is needed? Except this obscure law that says you have to file the oath, which means you sign some paper. I didn't do that because in previous 13 elections, the clerk or his aide brought the book to me.
And so they bring it to the other elected officials and have them sign the book.
Exactly.
Was this like fallout from the primary? I mean,
yeah, I think so.
What do you think? I mean,
I think so. Yes.
Why do you say that?
Well,
I mean, he didn't see. Obviously, the clerk did not support you. And your running mate, Lynn Noack.
If you looked at the word I wanted, the contempt, the vilification in that primary will tell you why. Very bitter people, bitter that they lost because they expected they would win, and so now we'll get Vecchio in another way, and I believe that's the genesis of it.
That's the genesis of it. You know, it really deserves more of an investigation. People got written up in the paper with headlines as kind of a technicality, and that, you know, you and your running mate should have known. But, you know, frankly, you're busy running the day. And here you've done this 13 times, 13 elections, and every clerk, no matter what, including when you were elected as a Democrat in an all-Republican town, came in and said, "Mr. Supervisor, it's time for you to sign the book."
Yes.
And this clerk did not.
No, correct.
It's outrageous.
I believe so.
Why is a clerk even elected? I mean, think about it. This is not like in the old days where all you had was a clerk and they would be the keeper of the records and be the only elected official in a community.
But there were other positions. You know, the legislature's passed legislation which allows those positions to be appointed. You know, we're now under a 2% cap.
Yeah.
We have to start to make cuts. I think there are two positions which definitely ought to be appointed: the clerk and the tax receiver.
Because you're really running a big business.
Yes.
There.
Now, they're only title holders.
Right.
Civil servants perform all of those tasks.
Right.
So in effect, they don't have a fiduciary responsibility.
They have no policy.
They make no policy. So it would be, we would save in town of Smithtown if those two positions were eliminated, and they'd have to be eliminated by referendum. We would save $250,000.
That's real money on a budget like yours.
It's real money, given the fact that we have to watch every dime now because of the 2% edict.
So you think you could get the support of members of the town board to go along with that?
I don't know. This is the first time I've talked about it. It's something I've been mulling in my mind for some time now.
Because I've often wondered, if you think about it, if you're going to have a tax receiver, which collects a lot of money, you ideally want somebody with some financial background. But as you point out, the career people, the civil servants, do the work. And they've got their systems, their processes, and all of that stuff. And the same is true with the clerk. I mean, the clerk is the keeper of the deeds. The clerk maintains records, does all of that, and all of that. But they don't vote on it at the town board.
No, it's a ministerial position. That's all it is.
Yeah.
In fact, the clerk doesn't even have to show to the meeting. As long as the meeting is recorded, he keeps the records. So that's just one of the ways governments are going to have to tackle this pretty tough rule about a 2% ban on taxes. You know?
But you know something? It also, your situation, and I believe you're right when I say this was a political conspiracy.
Sure.
Somebody was out to be cute, or even worse, try to overthrow the results of an election. Clerks, and for that matter, tax receivers, shouldn't be political. I mean, there's nothing political about those jobs.
But you raised a question earlier. Look, that whole entire primary was payback by the Conservative Party. Angry at me because I supported Mr. Bishop the congressman who represented Smithtown at the time.
Right.
And that was payback for that, because one of the elections he lost by, he won by 400 or 500 votes. They attributed 400 or 500 votes to me, and therefore Vecchio's got to go.
But isn't the reason why you've been so successful is that even if people disagree with you, you call it as you see it?
Well,
I mean, he happened to be a Democrat, but I know you. You're the type of person that says, if this guy's done a good job for Smithtown, I'll support him.
But shouldn't we all do that, no matter what political party? Shouldn't we be making the decisions based on what's right for the people and not based on political party?
More and more people agree with you, except for the politicians.
Yeah. And so, so the question would be, well, Mr. Vecchio, why did you support Mr. Bishop? Well, Mr. Bishop came to the aid of Smithtown on 3 occasions and brought money from Washington. I had gone through 5 other congressmen who never gave Smithtown or achieved for Smithtown one dime. Of course I want that fellow back in office. I don't care what party he's with.
Because they delivered. Okay, we'll have more with Pat Vecchio right after this break, so stay with us.
Yeah, the conspiracy was this guy.
This is the ocean, and this is Kipper. Kipper doesn't live in the ocean, but if she did, this is likely what would happen. This is Sparky, and this is habitat destruction. Boozer doesn't like it, neither does Fluffy. We wouldn't let this happen to Kipper, Sparky, Boozer, or Fluffy. In the oceans, it's worse. Lacking opposable thumbs, Kipper can't take action, but you can. Visit BeringSeaCanyons.org.
Did you get a call from the coach about those kids who were caught drinking?
Not our guys. They know better.
Yeah, they know better.
Heads up, sport.
Real kids are curious about alcohol. 40% tried by the 8th grade. Talk early, talk often, get others involved.
I'm New York State Assemblyman Edward Hennessy.
And I'm Jim Nostrom with the Long Island Cyclists and Runners for Safety.
Hit and run fatalities are at epidemic levels on Long Island. Last year in Suffolk County alone, numerous fatalities were attributed to an individual leaving the scene without reporting it.
Runners and cyclists, make sure you are visible and follow the rules of the road.
Drivers, if you think you've hit someone, stop, check, and call the police. Be aware and share the road.
Welcome back to MTL here with Pat Vecchio, the supervisor of Smithtown. Supervisor Vecchio, we were talking about this debacle with the clerk and not having you and your running mate Lynn Noack sign the oath of office. As of now, you actually have to run again this November, even though you were just elected last November.
Correct.
So in effect, there'll be a special election this November.
Well, no, it won't be special. It'll be on the regular November ballot.
But on the November ballot. But
Right.
but just to complete the remainder of your term.
Yes, correct.
Because you were appointed by the town board to finish this year. Is that what actually happened?
Well,
as
that's
a
what
result?
the law provides. You can be appointed for
Right,
1 year.
For 1 year. And so you're out circulating petitions. Will there be a contested election?
I don't think so. I mean, party leaders from different parties have
Democrats and others have all said you were
indicated-
elected in
yes,
your own right.
Correct.
So they're respecting the will of the people, unless somebody out of left field comes along.
Yeah, and that's interesting that opposing parties are respecting the will of the people, but the clerk wouldn't.
It really is interesting. Now, as you're sitting here talking about it, it is outrageous. It reminds me of, frankly, the kind of stuff that you see happen in other parts of the world. But this is the United States of America, where we, the people, the people's vote matters.
Yes.
And to nullify an election through this technicality is outrageous. I mean, in all seriousness.
Yeah.
So, but your local assemblyman, Mike Fitzpatrick, and your state senator have put in a bill, a special bill just for your situation. Has it passed the state legislature?
It has. It has passed in both houses of the legislature.
Which would mean what if the governor signs it?
It goes to the governor, and I think it will go within the next 10 days. And I think he has 30 days to sign it, or is it? It goes to him 30 days, and then he has 10 days to sign it. I'm not sure which, but whatever. If the governor signs the bill, then there'll be no election.
There'll be no election,
Yeah.
and you will
Yeah.
serve out the remainder of your full term,
Yes.
as the people voted
Yes.
just last November, about 6-7 months ago. Well, I hope, I'm sure the governor will sign it. I'd be surprised if he didn't. And that was a bill that got bipartisan support in the state legislature.
Yeah, John Flanagan, the state senator representing Smithtown, called me the night that occurred and said, I'm putting in a bill. And of course, Michael Fitzpatrick joined them, our assemblyman, it's an old cop phrase, stand-up guys.
Yeah.
You know, they were going to take the heat from some dissident political people who may not like what they do, and I'm sure they were called by certain political leaders not to do it. But nonetheless, it was done, and maybe what's all's well that ends well, and that could be the theme.
Well, you're sitting here. You've won 13 times. I'm sure you're thinking, well, if I have to run this November, I'll run this November and make my case.
Like water off a duck's back. No.
Hey, let's get back to this tax cap. Every time I
Yeah.
talk to a local official, whether it be a village mayor or a town supervisor or a county executive, they talk about the fact that they're all working very, very hard to stay within the tax cap, but it's becoming more and more difficult. What's the situation
Well,
in
I think in the
Smithtown?
short term it works. For example, in Smithtown, we're able to meet expenses with reserve funds that we've accumulated. But as you well know, the economy doesn't allow for much income anymore. So when that runs out, what do? And I think every municipality in the state is going to either, I would say 4 to 5 years, either cut services, do more borrowing than it should to meet the cap.
But when you look at the town tax bill, you've got two portions of it, for general fund,
Yeah.
and then you've got the highway
Yep.
tax. Both of them are very, very small. I mean, the beef that people have generally is not with town taxes, about the high property taxes here. It's about school taxes.
But consider that for a moment. Listen, you've heard it since you were born that education is the foundation of this country. I believe that in 4 to 5 years, not only municipalities, but school districts won't be able to meet their charge. How do they deliver the services of education if they have to keep cutting to meet that 2% cap?
It's going to be very, very hard. Now, the governor would argue that the 2% cap has forced school boards and town boards and others to take a hard look at their expenses, as you've just mentioned, but also when it comes to things like labor contracts.
Yeah.
To say, you know what, we can't have increases that push us above that cap because we can't afford them.
Well, I don't disagree with
Has that brought a discipline to
Well,
that
it certainly
process?
has. Yes, it has. But at some point, that discipline has to end when you can't deliver the services that you're responsible for. It's very difficult. Look, just like the household that you or I live in, the supermarket prices go up. Well, the same thing happens in government. Gasoline goes up for us. Asphalt goes up. Equipment costs go up. Well, you can't.
You have a winter like you had last winter,
There you go. So you
where
can't-
where you bust through your snow removal budget and,
Sure.
and halfway through the season.
So you can't continue those expenses without raising taxes. So there's a political gimmick here. The people who run the governments won't raise the taxes because they fear they will be unelected because they've broken the cap. That's the hammer on that 2% tax cut. That the politicians who run the governments will say, wait a minute, we can't do that. We'll get unelected if we pass
Right.
this cap. So it is a dilemma. I think it'll work for the next years. Yeah, we will be diligent about contracts. What do you do about increases in health care that go up 4 and 5% a year?
Or pension costs,
Or
which
pension
are going
costs.
up at a
Exactly.
very high rate.
And those are not excluded from, I think pension costs may be excluded from the cap.
But
I'm not
still,
sure.
those are real expenses
Yes.
that you have to incur, and as you point out, there are limitations to. You don't have much in the way of flexibility.
Well, you know, you have, Smithtown has 470 miles of road. Takes a lot of equipment to work them and to plow the snow.
And there isn't a highway superintendent on Long Island that isn't going to a town board saying,
I need more money.
I need more money for snow removal. I need to fill potholes, and roads need to be rebuilt.
Well, but think about
and
it.
You don't quarrel with that. You understand.
No. Think about that. A truck that cost $200,000 5 or 6 years ago is now $300,000. That all eats at that amount that's in the tax cap. I hope there'll be some relief at some point on that tax cap. Otherwise, it's people are going to suffer. It's nice to say that we've cut taxes, but when it's detrimental to the populace you're serving, then I think that's not such a good idea.
Okay, we have to take a short break. When we come back, we want to talk about some of the development that's going on in Smithtown that we've been reading about, and get your thoughts
Sure.
on how to revitalize some of those downtown communities like St. James and Smithtown itself. So we'll have more with Supervisor Vecchio in about 90 seconds.
Why should you choose to fly Long Island MacArthur Airport? I'm Town Supervisor Tom Croce, and the answer is clear. Close to home, no lines, convenient parking, a 5-minute shuttle from Long Island Railroad's Ronkonkoma Station, and Wi-Fi is now available at the airport from Optimum. Internet access while you wait for the flight. Long Island MacArthur Airport, the stress-free alternative. Relax, your vacation starts here.
The Terry Farrell Firefighters Fund doesn't have a telethon. It's not about being in the spotlight. It's about giving support to first responders and military veterans. The fund was established in memory of Terry Farrell, a decorated member of the Rescue 4 FDNY who perished on 9/11. The fund ensures that firefighters have the resources to protect the public. The fund also assists families of firefighters, first responders, and military veterans who are facing medical emergencies. Please support our mission by volunteering or donating. Visit us at terryfund.org.
Some goodbyes are worth fighting for. Help the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation honor Marines by educating their children at mcsf.org.
Welcome back to Meet the Leaders here with the Supervisor of Smithtown, Pat Vecchio. Supervisor Smithtown, you've got some interesting zoning issues that have come up before the Smithtown Town Board. And I'd like to just get your thoughts on them. I mean, one of the things that towns, and for that matter villages, are responsible for that I think is probably the most important is the power of zoning and development. And so give us an overview of some of the big issues involving your town right now.
There are not many. We do have a very good initiative in the industrial park, which is, the second largest in the country.
You're talking about the Hop Park Industrial Park, yes.
And we call it an overlay district. We're going to allow these buildings to go up another story.
Why not?
Why not? The sewage is there. The sewage capacity is there.
Was that the issue that was holding it back for years? They didn't have enough capacity to handle
That's correct.
any additional flow?
The sewer plant that was in that park wasn't adequate for any expansion.
Right.
And in fact, the county asked us for a 7-acre piece, which we donated to the county, which allowed them to expand this sewage treatment plant. Now that that's happened, those businesses who are not hooked to a sewer now will be able to, and hopefully this overlay district, which will mean more expansion, most of those will be able to hook up.
It's going to be a big influx of expansion. Some of the buildings are old, and I suppose they will probably knock them down and build a new modern facility, or in some cases add a second story.
Well, they will. That's the main part of it is the adding of more square footage, and we will reduce the parking calculations so that the businesses can expand and generate more money, and ultimately
that's a big employer. People don't realize. You say it's the second largest
in the country.
Industrial park in the country
By square footage.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's a big employer.
Yeah.
And when we talk about manufacturing on Long Island, or the lack of it, the place where manufacturing is happening is in your Hop Park Industrial Park.
Well, think about it. What comes out of that, or at least they should still be doing, HBO signal comes out of that park. You have Dale Carnegie. You have Cablevision. You have all kinds of top shelf industries in that park. They should be able to expand.
And it's to your credit that you've encouraged that. What about Smith, the hamlet of Smithtown? You've got that downtown there. I know that you've been pushing the county to expand sewers in places like Kings Park and all that. Why does that take so darn long to happen? What's the holdup?
Well, obviously the holdup is money. I do believe that sewers are the county government's role.
I agree with you. It's their responsibility.
And I think that we talk about borrowing. Well, why couldn't the county make a large enough borrowing to sewer downtowns in different towns? It would get paid off. It costs nobody anything other than the businesses who will hook up. Sewers are the answer to all expansion and to regeneration.
And redevelopment. And the county, as you know, has passed very strict regulations on what you can dispose of into cesspools and septic systems. But the flip side of that coin is the county's also responsible for the infrastructure necessary to rejuvenate some of these communities that used to be thriving.
But that's the largest, I think is Article 7
of
the health law. That's the biggest detrimental development.
Right. And without sewers.
We have a movie theater in downtown Smithtown that struggles. It's a performing arts center. That gentleman who owns that wants to expand. He owns 2 stores, one on either side. Put a bar or a lounge, whatever it might be. He can't expand because his septic system is not able to take the flow. There's no way he can expand. So the lifeblood of that theater is expansion, and he can't. So I think the people in charge of the Suffolk government have to have a bigger view on this, really a bigger view. That's the only way they're going to generate the sales tax they need.
You're right, and we've got to look for those type of strategic investments.
Yes.
I mean, look, I'm a big environmentalist, and the county has invested hundreds of millions of dollars in open space and land acquisition, historic acquisitions. Now is the time to make those kinds of investments in infrastructure.
Yeah.
And I know you'd be the first one to stand up and say, I'm all for it.
Yeah, I am. In fact, I don't know when this show will air, but I have a meeting with the county executive this coming Tuesday. Hopefully we can convince him to release some funds towards at least one part of Smithtown, Kings Park, where there's already an existing sewer treatment plant.
Yeah, we just did a show with your county legislator, Rob Trotta, and he's promoting that vigorously, and I know you'll be supporting that effort.
Sure.
Because it's necessary.
And,
And those types of strategic investments are the things that pay dividends.
Absolutely.
Okay. Pat Vecchio, thanks so much for being
here.
Thank you. Thanks for hanging in there and not allowing the SOBs to get you down.
They never did.
Okay, well, that's going to do it for this edition of MTL. I'm Pat Halford, once again helping you meet the leaders.
Do you have credit card debt, or are you struggling to pay your mortgage? For nearly 20 years, Debt Counseling Corporation has helped consumers just like you. As a nonprofit credit counseling and HUD-approved agency, all of our counseling is free of charge. Our debt management plan could be the answer you are looking for. We were voted the first place winner in the Best of Long Island Awards for our services. Got debt? We can help. Call us today at 631-582-4300.
Yes, ready? Go get it.
Oh, come on, Randy. Animal shelter, here I come. And no, I'm not crazy or emotionally damaged. That's a stereotype. I just belong to a total loser. I'm a good dog. So if you want a pet, adopt. And if you see Randy, tell him he dropped his wallet.
Why not join Smithtown Youth Bureau? I did. Volunteer with our Youth Advisory Board or join our programs throughout the year. The Youth Bureau is free of charge, and we work with youth from birth to age 21 who live in the town of Smithtown. Programs run during day and evening hours. For more information on our winter calendar of events, visit smithtownny.gov. Click on the Youth Bureau under the Department tab or call 631-360-7595.